Did you know that there are actually people who, when they say they're not thinking anything, they're not? If you have ADHD, that might come as a surprise to you. It sure did to me. I thought that everybody had an inner monologue and that they were always thinking about something. How is it possible to not think anything? Well, our neurotypical peers, many of them, don't have that inner monologue. Part of the reason for that is because of the default mode network. So, scientists have discovered that there are two networks in our brain that work at different times. Our default mode network is the network that functions when your brain's supposedly at rest, right? Some people have a very active one, some don't, and they can actually not think anything at that time. Unfortunately, people with ADHD think a lot during that time, and oftentimes it's negative things that we're thinking about. We're ruminating on things that maybe we said this morning or we might be embarrassed about. We can't stop thinking about them, and it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. But always something happening in our brain. That's because the default mode network in neurotypical people functions differently than in our ADHD folks. There's also a network that's called the task positive network, and that's the network that actually kicks in and starts functioning so that you can focus on one task. So at rest, believe it or not, your default mode network is actually more active than when your brain is focused on one activity. They work like a light switch in a neurotypical person. So like when your task positive network is on, your default mode network is off. For ADHDers, your default mode network is on, and then your task positive network turns back on and off however it feels. This rarely turns off for us. So that's why we have so much going on in our brains. It's partly why we get so distracted so easily, because we're distracted by our own thoughts, things that are going on in our heads all the time, because it doesn't get silent for us. And so we may be thinking about what's for dinner, or what happened yesterday after dinner when we got in a fight, or whatever. And this is stuff that people will say, just put it out of your head. Well, they're telling you, turn off your default mode network. How? Using medication can can sometimes calm that in people. I think it's a big part of how medications work is like suddenly somebody will start taking medication and they'll be like, it got really quiet in my head. And that's just because their default mode network is working with more reciprocity with your task positive network. Meds is not the only solution, and I would never tell anybody whether or not they should take medication. There is one thing that has sort of helped with that for me. Um, and honestly, it's breathing. I know it seems so simple, but it's a matter of just kind of clearing your brain a little bit. And for some reason, I'm not sure exactly why it works, but breathing helps. And I don't mean just like I'm breathing. I mean counting your breaths, like really paying attention to what you're doing. So let's do a fun activity. Let's do a breathing technique that I use together, and maybe it'll help. Just like that. Give it a try. Strategy, and like all the other ones that I tell you, it may work for you, it might not, but it's worth a try. I hope you've enjoyed this video today and it's been helpful. If you did, press like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.